Thanks to the roller coaster database, we looked at every coaster built in the US going all the way back to 1980 and found two interesting trends. One, that holy moly, we were building so many coasters in the late 90s and early 2000s. And two, that kid-friendly rides are becoming a bigger and bigger proportion of all new coasters.
You always got to do it bigger and better and different, right? So we wanted to do that. So the current record is actually 95 degrees on the dive coaster. So why don't we just go 96 and then boom, now it's another world record and something that hasn't been done.
Referred to me in the articles, in the media, and the investment community as Mr. Theme Park. My company has worked on over 500 projects in more than 55, probably 60 countries by now. We are expecting on a major implementation of a coaster to see somewhere around a 3 to 5% increase in attendance.
Just look at any of the record-holding roller coasters. Most were built around the late 1990s to the early 2010s.
Zoomed into the post-2020 rides, and I found that of all the coasters categorized as thrill, 8 of them allow on kids as short as 36 inches, and that's about 3 to 4 years old. I'm just saying, if I were in charge of categorizing roller coasters, I'd class anything that allows on 3 to 4-year-olds as family.
Scale spending increasing behind that carries forward for 2 or 3 years. And hopefully within that period, you've paid that ride off. We had been coming through that period of longer, higher, faster for about 8 or 9 years. And quite frankly, I think the public got a little tired of hearing that. Coaster is still king. We continue to see 38 new coasters in the US and 180 or so globally. I mean, they're not falling off. They're still growing. And as long as the manufacturers continue to add new twists and turns, literally, people will keep riding.
In their video titled, How Millennials Ruined Roller Coasters, the creators at Business Explains the World present a compelling narrative about the evolution of the amusement park industry. They argue that the rise of record-breaking thrill rides in the 90s and 2000s has given way to a new era of family-friendly immersive attractions, and that millennials are largely responsible for this shift. While the video makes several valid observations about changes in the park's strategy, ride design, and economics, there are a few things that play into this trend that may have gone unmentioned too. The idea that millennials ruined roller coasters overlooks critical industry trends, the downfall of regional parks, and the decisions made by the parks themselves. To understand where the video gets things right, and where I think it misses a few points, we first need to examine the points it presents. But first, a huge shout out goes out to all of our channel members for being part of the community, and to West over at the High Rollers for this idea. If you like this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button at the end. Let's get into the video at hand. Let me first start off by saying I don't completely disagree with the video that they made. I just think that there are a few things that may explain why the industry changed a little bit that they may not have mentioned. Their video argues that the explosion of extreme thrill rides in the early 90s and early 2000s created a golden age for roller coaster fans. Between 1995 and 2000, 243 new coasters were built in the US, with the majority being tall, fast thrill rides. Between 2000 and 2005, another 200 were built. About 60% thrill focused, 40% family. This period was fueled by one-upmanship, each park trying to outdo the other with taller drops, faster speeds, and steeper angles. Eventually, this would have to end, and we saw rides like Maverick and Cedar Point start to become the new trend. Disney was credited with kickstarting the trend toward innovation in themed entertainment way back in the day. Disney didn't invent thrill rides, but it redefined what was possible in themed entertainment. When Space Mountain opened in 1975, it proved that coasters didn't need to rely solely on statistics to impress. Disney brought storytelling, atmosphere, and high-capacity designs into the conversation. Later innovations like Tower of Terror, Expedition Everest, and Radiator Springs Racers pushed this even further, blending coaster technology with immersive theming and IP integration. But it was Cedar Point and Six Flags that led the charge on height and speed records. The truth is, Disney has its own goals. Its strategy is to be built around high-margin experiences tied to intellectual property, a business model that doesn't rely on extreme thrills. Regional amusement parks don't operate on the same wavelength. For them, thrills aren't optional, they're the draw. That's why even now, in the supposed era of family-first coasters, Cedar Point promoted Top Thrill 2 as the biggest ride of the year, and parks like Busch Gardens, HersheyPark, and even the small fun spots are investing in aggressive RMCs and intense new layouts. If thrills were truly outdated, these rides wouldn't exist. Fun Spot Atlanta being a prime example of people stopping by a park for thrills that never would have before. They do make a great point that from 2015 to 2020, less than 100 coasters were built across the country, a major drop. And although the pace has picked up from 2020 to 2025, many of those new rides now allow riders as short as 36 inches, meaning they're meant for kids as young as 3 and 4 sometimes. The video claims this reflects a larger industry shift, that parks now design rides not to scare thrill seekers but to attract broader audiences. That's because they argue families spend more, buying food, souvenirs, and hotel stays, compared to the everyday park goers with season passes. The volume of coasters being constructed has declined. From 2015 to 2020, fewer than 100 new coasters opened in the US, and though the numbers began to recover slightly post-2020, the video points out that many of these new additions were aimed at younger riders, allowing guests as small as 36 inches to board. The implication is that the industry is trending away from thrilling experiences and toward tamer, more family-focused rides, and that millennials, now becoming parents, are the ones pushing this shift. In the video, they talked with theme park consultant Dennis Spiegel. The video explains that in the past, parks expected a 3 to 5% attendance bump from a new mega coaster that could last 2 or 3 seasons along with park spending and food behind it. But in my opinion, those returns are harder to come by now, especially as marketing tactics have become diluted. Records getting broken by a single degree or a couple of feet leave the public underwhelmed. The assumption here is that modern guests, millennials in particular, no longer care about bigger, faster, and steeper, and prefer immersive storytelling, character-based theming, and shared experiences. I'll explain in a bit why I think this is a little misguided. So why do I think the real story behind the shift is a little bit more complicated? What the video doesn't really discuss is the massive disappearance of small and mid-sized amusement parks across North America, the kinds of parks that once specialized in family rides. In the past, families might have taken their kids to county fairs, smaller permanent parks, trolley parks, or traveling carnivals, where a simple wild mouse coaster or spinning ride was all it took to create a memorable day. But those parks are mostly gone. Many were shuttered due to rising insurance costs, real estate developments, or being absorbed into larger corporate portfolios. With fewer low-cost, low-risk options available for families, large parks like Cedar Point have had to pick up the slack. Suddenly, parks known for thrills now need to cater to toddlers, grandparents, and everybody in between. Take Cedar Point's 2023 edition, Wild Mouse. At first glance, it's a family ride, short height requirement, wild stats, and brightly colored cars that spin. But it's also a clever homage to the types of portable wild mouse coasters you'd once see on the family fair circuit. It's nostalgic, permanent, and reliable. It's kind of a fairground idea elevated into something safe, themed, and family-friendly. Something the park has had before, and brings back memories. This isn't really about millennials disliking thrills. It's about large parks filling a void left behind by the smaller ones. When the rest of the industry collapses, the bigger players have to do more. That's not generational, that's just structural. A lack of small local parks that used to exist all across America are now left to be entertained by the big parks. Over the years, the number of parks with coasters has grown mostly because of tiny indoor rides, junior coasters, and multi-attraction family centers. The number of full-scale regional amusement parks, especially ones with throw-based rides, have declined or been absorbed by big chains. So while the raw number of parks has increased, the industry's diversity and thrill ride ecosystem has shrunk, leading to the exact shift you're describing in the video. Fewer big swings, more cautious investments, and a family-first pivot. Traditional parks with thrill coasters back in the 80s were about 500 to 700 of them. 2000s was about 6 to 700, and in 2023, we're down to about 4 to 500, while there's still about 1,270 amusement parks by definition today, with smaller rides and family entertainment centers. So yes, we gained a large number of smaller niche or indoor parks, many of which are corporate-owned chains like Urban Air, even the Fun Spots, Main Event, etc. We lost a ton of traditional parks too. Now the idea that theme parks have abandoned thrills in favor of family rides doesn't really add up either if you look at the last 5 years of park additions. If anything, thrills still dominate, just not in the construction budgets, but in marketing. Major parks still promote their newest thrill rides as marquee attractions. From Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa a few years ago to Airy Force 1 a couple of years back to Cedar Point's Top Thrill 2, the trend is still very much alive. The difference is that these rides now often come with better theming, more media buzz, and with more complete ride packages. This doesn't represent a shift away from thrills, it's kind of a shift toward better thrills. The days of building the biggest ride just to have bragging rights might be gone, but what's taken their place is arguably smarter. Parks are investing in rides that are intense, repeatable, narratively framed, and cost-effective. They're not choosing family rides over thrill rides, they're simply realizing they need both of them. And if you really think about it, tons of parks are still building RMCs and Intamins and things like that. They're just building them much smarter, smaller footprints, more impact per coaster, you know what I mean? More return on investment for the coaster that they're trying to build. And I can see why that shift is happening. Now, one of the claims in their video I just wholeheartedly disagree with is when they were talking with Dennis Spiegel when he suggested that the public got tired of taller, faster, steeper marketing all the time. And for me, I think that's because the argument ignores the real problem. Parks have diluted the value of record breaking. In the 1990s, breaking a record meant something. Magnum XL 200 hit 200 feet. Millennium Force then smashed past 300 in the 2000s, so over 10 years you got hundreds of feet for records. And then King Ka blew past 400. Each was a legitimate leap, huge leap, but in the years that followed, parks started splitting hairs over tiny things. A coaster might break a record by 1 degree of steepness, or 1 foot of extra height. A ride could claim to be the fastest wooden coaster with an inversion, or the tallest coaster with a vertical drop in a left-hand turn, so-and-so. These records don't inspire awe. They create more eye rolls. Even Cedar Point's Tony Clark has fallen into this trend of marketing silly records.
You always got to do it bigger and better and different, right? So we wanted to do that. So the current record is actually 95 degrees on the dive coaster. So why don't we just go 96 and then boom, now it's another world record and something that hasn't been done before.
Now we can all laugh and it's kind of a joke, but it's also an admission. Parks didn't fail because guests stopped caring about the thrills and the records. Parks failed when they started delivering smaller thrills while pretending they were massive ones. The audience didn't change. The sincerity of the product has. And yes, families love being able to ride rides together, but the big investments they shy away from now are simply because they pretend these records are worth the marketing power over, say, better themes or names. Dennis Spiegel went on to discuss what they expect on a return on investment for a major ride.
We are expecting on a major implementation of a coaster to see somewhere around a 3 to 5% increase in attendance, with retail spending increasing behind that. That carries forward for 2 or 3 years. And hopefully within that period, you've paid that ride off.
3 to 5% attendance increase plus marketing and, some of the in-park spending behind it. But for people like me, I kind of believe that it's arrogant that you believe people would actually travel further or go out of their way to visit a park because they beat it by 1 degree. With Wrath of Rakshasa, for instance, 96 degrees isn't going to drive me from going, I have a dive coaster at Cedar Point, I have one at Canada's Wonderland. That one's a little further away. It's not that much more unique, and you beat it by 1 degree. And you're trying to sell this to us and expecting these returns on investments, which you're just not going to get with these tiny records. But they're still going to blame the coaster fanatics, all the people who visit the parks, for not getting it and saying that they can't invest in things, when the fact of the matter is, these are just tiny records that you're diluting to split hairs over to say it in your marketing campaign, and they're not truly drawing people out. The fact of the matter is, your marketing isn't working. It's not that the coasters aren't good and that they don't deliver, even with the 1 extra degree and whatnot. You just have to sell the coasters better and maybe not build another dive coaster in a region that has tons of dive coasters. But I digress, they're going to blame park fans for that. To add on to this example, let's look at Six Flags Great Adventure. We're not truly going to know what their attendance numbers are this year until maybe next season or maybe, in the wintertime. But with the removal of King Ka and only adding Flash Vertical Velocity over there, we're bound to see if the family investments are quite as worth it as the big draws are. Now, they are rumored to be building a big coaster in 2026, which may get pushed back to 2027, who knows, but Thrills are very evidently still a good draw here, and we'll see what happens to that park's attendance over the course of this year. Some expect it to fall. Now, the video's final claim is that parks have pivoted away from thrill rides because families, not young adults, have more expendable income. But the financial data says a little bit different. According to Cedar Fair's Q1 2024 report, their annual attendance reached 26.7 million guests. Of those, roughly 55% were season pass holders, accounting for over 14.7 million visits. These pass holders, many of them millennials, didn't just show up, they spent. With the addition of Fastlane being $950 to $1,000 a year, all-season dining plans, drink plans, hotel stays, and merch, the average pass holder spends quite a bit of money per year. They estimate about $300 to $600 per year, some far more. In contrast, single-day guests, the casual family audience often cited as more lucrative, accounted for just 45% of visits. While they may pay more for an individual ticket, they spend less overall, especially on all of the upcharges. Even Six Flags, which historically leaned on deep discounts, reported that shifting to membership-style passes and reducing one-day ticket reliance led to higher revenue per guest. So, who really drives profits? Not just families with toddlers, not the occasional tourist, but the consistent, loyal, upgrade-heavy season pass holders as well. A demographic dominated by millennials these days and the older Gen Z. We're not only attending more often, always getting things or influencing our friends and family to get something cool as well. We are the repeat buyers, the merch collectors, the event attendees. We're the ones who bought into the parks, quite literally, and who continue to always buy in year after year. Now, it's real easy to sit here and blame one generation or blame somebody else when something changes. And it's true, the roller coaster industry today doesn't look like it did in 2000. But millennials didn't really kill anything. What happened was a convergence of a bunch of different things. The collapse of small parks, the overpromising of meaningless records, a rising need for inclusivity, and a business model that was forced to evolve. Millennials aren't the real villains here. We're the generation that grew up during the coaster wars, kept riding through every evolution, still follow every announcement, buy the passes, bring our families, even our kids, and continue to spend, even in an economy that's made it harder to do so. So if the video wants to assign blame for the shift in strategy, it shouldn't really point just to millennials. It should look at an industry that over-marketed itself into a corner as well, diluted some of its excitement and records, and forgot how to speak honestly to the fans who stuck with them the whole time. Because we're still here, we're still watching, and we're still the ones willing to wait in line, if the ride is worth it. Now, I think the better question is, will the industry step up and deliver, or balance itself too far towards family thrills and alienate the very audience it once represented? There's a place for both, a balance between the crazy and too tame. And parks like Cedar Point, with additions like Wild Mouse, Top Thrill 2, then Siren's Curse, seem to get the point still. Thrills draw people. The Wild Mouse rounds it out and brings grandma in with the grandchildren. We may have seen a shift towards family rides, but thrill rides bring the people still, and the parks know it. They just have to round out the lineups to make it fun for everyone. And we as fans can appreciate that without blaming each other for the downfall or decline of major thrills in theme parks. Parks can stop diluting the records or trying to break them year in and out, and that may make the records count for more when they do actually break them. One thing's for certain, thrill and family matters, and parks balancing that need is good for all of us. Let me know what you think, and if you like the video, be sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Let me know if there's anything else you would have added, and how you feel about the current trend in theme parks. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the spooky community today. A huge shout out again goes out to all of our channel members for being part of it and hanging out with us at all the parks. And of course, as always, thank you for being a part of our spooky community and for coaster ghosting with Ghoster Coasters. And support your local amusement park, everybody.